The day was calm, with the sun shining warmly above a small town that seemed to move at its own slow pace. Daniel wiped the sweat from his forehead as he pushed the heavy garage door halfway down. It was late afternoon, and he was looking forward to going home with his daughter, Lily, and cooking something simple for dinner. His hands, stained with the marks of oil and grease, told the story of his lifelong days fixing cars to keep food on the table and give his little girl the childhood he wanted her to have. He looked over to the side where Lily sat on a stool, swinging her small legs back and forth. She had been drawing on a scrap piece of cardboard with a broken crayon, humming to herself in that cheerful way that only children could. Daniel smiled at her. Even though life hadn't been easy since his wife passed away, Lily made the weight bearable. She was his reason for everything. "Ready to head home, kiddo?" Daniel asked, brushing his palms on a rag. "Can we have pancakes for dinner?" Lily asked with her usual sparkle in her eyes. Daniel laughed softly. "Pancakes for dinner, huh? I guess that's allowed if you're the boss." Before Lily could reply, the sound of a struggling car engine broke the quiet street. Daniel turned toward the noise, and a silver sedan rolled slowly into the driveway of his garage. Smoke puffed lightly from the hood, and the engine gave a final, pitiful rattle before shutting off completely. The driver's door opened quickly, and a young woman stepped out, her expression a mix of worry and embarrassment. She tucked a strand of hair behind her ear, clearly flustered by the situation. Daniel noticed she was dressed neatly, maybe coming from work, and her hands nervously held onto her bag. "I'm so sorry," she said, her voice carrying both urgency and politeness. "My car just started making this awful noise, and then smoke. I didn't know where else to go. I saw your sign and thought maybe you could help." Daniel offered her a reassuring smile. He had seen this 100 times, people stranded, not knowing what to do. "You came to the right place. Don't worry about it. Let's take a look." The woman nodded gratefully, stepping back as Daniel lifted the hood. A puff of warm smoke escaped, and he leaned in, scanning the engine. His practiced eyes moved carefully over the parts, and within moments, he spotted the issue. A small but important hose had slipped loose, causing the engine to overheat. It wasn't a major fix, but to someone who didn't know cars, it might have seemed like a disaster. Lily, curious as always, had climbed off her stool and tiptoed closer. She peeked from behind her father, her big brown eyes studying the woman. There was something about her that made Lily pause, though she couldn't explain what it was. Daniel straightened up after a few minutes, wiping his hands. "Nothing too serious," he said kindly. "A hose came loose, caused your engine to overheat. I'll tighten it back and top off the coolant. You'll be good to go." The woman let out a breath of relief, her shoulders relaxing. "Oh, thank goodness. I was worried it was something that would cost a fortune." Daniel shook his head. "Nope. Just a quick fix." She reached for her bag, already pulling out her wallet. "Please, let me pay you. I don't want to take advantage of your time." But Daniel raised a hand and gave a small smile. "Don't worry about it. Really. It'll only take a few minutes. No charge." Her eyes widened slightly. "Are you sure?" "Positive," he replied. "I know how it feels when things go wrong at the worst time. Sometimes you just need a little help, and it doesn't have to come with a price tag." The woman hesitated, touched by his words. She slowly put her wallet back, murmuring, "Thank you. That's really kind of you." Daniel bent back down to work, tightening the hose and carefully checking the fluids. Lily stayed close, still staring at the woman. The woman noticed and gave Lily a gentle smile, crouching down slightly so she was on her level. "Hi there," she said warmly. "What's your name?" Lily looked down at her shoes for a second, then replied softly, "Lily." "That's a beautiful name," the woman said. "I'm Emily." Lily's lips curved into a tiny smile, though she didn't say much more. She simply watched as Emily's eyes softened with kindness, the same way her teacher at school sometimes looked at her when praising her drawings. Something about the way Emily smiled made Lily's little heart stir, as though she had known her much longer than just a few seconds. Daniel finished his work and closed the hood with a soft thud. "All done," he announced. "You should be fine now. Just keep an eye on the temperature gauge for the next couple of days, but really, it should be good." Emily straightened, looking at him with genuine gratitude. "I don't know how to thank you. You saved me a lot of stress. I was on my way to visit a friend, and I didn't know what I'd do if the car completely broke down on the road." "No thanks needed," Daniel replied. "Just glad you made it here safe." Emily looked at him for a moment, then at Lily, who was still quietly observing her. She felt a strange connection, one she couldn't quite put into words. There was a warmth in Daniel's voice, a gentle patience in the way he spoke, and an innocence in Lily's eyes that made Emily's heart soften unexpectedly. Lily, on the other hand, felt something stir deeper. She didn't know why, but inside, she thought Emily looked like someone who should already be part of their lives. The thought was too big for her small heart to handle, so she stayed silent, just hugging herself as if holding onto a secret. Daniel dusted off his hands. "Well, that should do it. You're good to go." Emily glanced at her car and then back at him. "I'll bring you something tomorrow. Maybe some coffee, at least. I can't just drive away without giving something in return." Daniel chuckled. "If you insist. But really, I didn't do much." Emily smiled, and for the first time in her stressful day, she felt the heaviness lift. She got back into her car, waved to Lily, and started the engine. The car purred smoothly this time. She gave one more look at Daniel before pulling out of the driveway, and Lily whispered something so softly that even Daniel didn't catch it. Inside her little heart, Lily whispered to herself, "She's my mom." And with that, the car disappeared down the road, leaving behind a faint scent of possibility, one that neither Daniel nor Emily yet understood, but Lily, in her innocent way, already knew. The evening sun had already begun its slow journey down the horizon by the time Emily's car disappeared around the corner. Daniel stood for a moment at the edge of his garage, watching the tail lights fade. He let out a soft breath and turned back to his daughter. Lily had gone quiet, but she still had that thoughtful look on her face, as if her little mind was holding on to something big. "You ready for those pancakes, kiddo?" Daniel asked, trying to bring back her cheerful smile. Lily nodded, but she didn't bounce with excitement like usual. Instead, she slipped her small hand into his. "Daddy," she said softly. She was nice. Daniel looked down at her, surprised by the seriousness in her tone. "Yeah, she was," he agreed, giving her hand a gentle squeeze. "It's good to meet kind people once in a while." But Lily didn't say anything more. She just looked back at the road where Emily's car had gone, as though something about that meeting wasn't finished. The next day began like any other. Daniel woke early, made Lily's breakfast, and dropped her off at school before heading back to the garage. The routine was simple and predictable, just the way Daniel liked it. His days were busy, but he found comfort in the rhythm. Yet as he tightened bolts and changed oil for customers, he couldn't stop thinking about the woman from yesterday. Emily. He remembered the relief in her face when he said the car would be okay, the way she insisted on paying even though it wasn't necessary, and the gratitude in her smile. It wasn't often that someone lingered in his mind like that. Usually, people came, got their cars fixed, and left. But this was different. By late afternoon, Daniel was wiping his hands when he noticed a car pulling into the driveway. His heart gave a small jolt when he recognized it, the same silver sedan from yesterday. He wasn't sure why, but he felt an odd rush of anticipation. Emily stepped out, holding a small paper bag in her hands. She looked a little nervous, but there was determination in her eyes. Daniel quickly straightened, brushing his hands against a rag. "You're back," he said, unable to hide his slight surprise. Emily smiled, though it was a little shy. "I told you I'd bring something. It's just coffee and some muffins. I thought you and your daughter might like them." Daniel blinked, caught off guard by the gesture. He wasn't used to people bringing him things, especially not with such thoughtfulness. "You really didn't have to," he said, though his voice carried genuine appreciation. "I know," Emily replied, stepping closer. "But I wanted to. You helped me yesterday, and I couldn't stop thinking about how kind you were. It's not every day someone does something for nothing." From the side of the shop, Lily appeared, her school backpack still slung over one shoulder. She froze when she saw Emily, her eyes widening in recognition. A smile spread across her face, small but genuine, as she ran up to her father. "Hi," Emily said softly, crouching down a little to meet Lily's gaze. "I brought you something too. Do you like muffins?" Lily nodded quickly, almost too quickly, as if she had been waiting for this moment. "Blueberry?" she asked in a hopeful whisper. Emily laughed gently. "Yes, blueberry. I guessed right, didn't I?" Lily's eyes lit up as Daniel opened the bag and pulled out the treats. The simple act made the garage feel warmer, as though something invisible had shifted. Daniel watched the interaction carefully. Lily was usually shy around strangers, but she seemed unusually comfortable with Emily, as if she had already decided to trust her. They all sat on a bench near the garage door, sharing the coffee and muffins. The afternoon light poured in, painting everything in a golden hue. Daniel felt something he hadn't in a long time: peace mixed with companionship. It was rare for him to sit like this, enjoying company that didn't come with work or responsibility. Emily asked about his work, and he explained how he'd started his own small garage after years of working at a larger shop. She listened attentively, nodding, and asking questions in a way that made him feel his story mattered. When the conversation shifted to Lily, Daniel's voice softened as he talked about raising her on his own. He didn't share all the details of his loss. It wasn't something he could easily open up about, but Emily didn't push. She just listened with genuine interest, her eyes kind. Lily, in her childlike way, filled the silences with her chatter. She told Emily about her favorite teacher, her love for drawing, and how she sometimes wished for pancakes every night. Emily laughed, responding with patience and warmth that made Daniel's chest tighten unexpectedly. He hadn't seen Lily open up to someone new like this in a long time. As the sun began to lower again, Emily stood to leave. "Thank you for letting me stop by," she said. "I hope I didn't take up too much of your time." "Not at all," Daniel replied. "It was nice." Emily smiled and waved goodbye, but before she reached her car, Lily tugged at Daniel's sleeve and whispered something that made his heart nearly stop. "Daddy," she said quietly, her little eyes fixed on Emily, "she feels like my mom. Can she stay?" Daniel's throat tightened. He didn't know how to respond, so he simply knelt down and kissed the top of her head. "She was very kind, wasn't she?" he said softly, avoiding the deeper meaning in her words. Lily nodded firmly, her expression serious beyond her years. "Please marry her," she whispered, almost as if she feared Emily might hear. Daniel felt his chest ache at the innocence in her request. He glanced up just in time to see Emily waving from her car window. She had no idea what his daughter had just said, and for now, he was grateful. He waved back, managing a small smile, though inside he felt a storm of emotions he couldn't quite name. When the car drove away again, Lily leaned against him, still holding on to the thought she had spoken aloud. Daniel hugged her gently, wondering how one small act of kindness had opened the door to something he wasn't sure he was ready for, but something his daughter seemed to believe in with all her heart. That night, after Lily had gone to bed, Daniel sat at the kitchen table, staring at the untouched cup of coffee Emily had left behind. The warmth had faded, but the memory of her smile had not. For the first time in years, he found himself thinking about what life could look like if it wasn't just him and Lily. He shook his head, trying to clear the thought. It was too soon, too complicated. But deep down, he knew something had already changed. The walls he had built around his heart had felt a small crack, and the sound of his daughter's hopeful whisper lingered, refusing to fade. The week carried on as usual, but something about the days felt different to Daniel. He still woke early, still made Lily's breakfast, still worked long hours in his garage. But now there was a new thought in his mind, one that kept returning no matter how many times he tried to push it away. Emily. He didn't know why her face stayed with him. Maybe it was the way she smiled kindly at Lily, or the gratitude in her voice when she thanked him. Or maybe it was just that his daughter seemed to think there was something more to it. Either way, he found himself glancing toward the street now and then, wondering if her car would appear again. One afternoon, his quiet wish came true. The familiar silver sedan pulled into the driveway, and Daniel's chest tightened with both surprise and a strange kind of anticipation. He quickly set down his tools and wiped his hands on a rag as Emily stepped out of the car, holding a small container. "I thought you might like some homemade soup," she said with a smile. "It's my grandmother's recipe." Daniel blinked, caught off guard once more. "You really don't have to keep bringing things," he said, though his voice was softer than before. "I know," Emily replied gently. "But I like to. It feels right." Before Daniel could answer, Lily came running from the back of the shop. Her face lit up the moment she saw Emily, as though she had been waiting for her all day. "You came back," she exclaimed, her small voice full of delight. Emily laughed softly. "Of course I came back. And I brought soup. Do you like soup?" Lily nodded eagerly, then slipped her tiny hand into Emily's without hesitation. The sight made Daniel pause. His daughter rarely held hands with anyone outside of family, but here she was, clinging to Emily as though she belonged. They sat together on a bench outside, enjoying the soup while the afternoon breeze carried the scent of oil and warm earth. The conversation flowed easily. Emily asked Lily about school, and Lily answered with enthusiasm, telling her all about her latest drawing and how her teacher had praised her for neat handwriting. Emily listened carefully, giving her full attention, and Daniel watched quietly, his heart caught between pride for his daughter and an ache he couldn't quite describe. As the sun dipped lower, Emily stood to leave. "I should go," she said with a soft smile. "Thank you for letting me stay a while." "Thank you for the soup," Daniel replied. "It was delicious." Emily turned toward her car, and that was when Lily tugged at her father's sleeve. She leaned close, her voice dropping to a whisper that carried a weight far greater than her years. "Daddy," she said, "she's my mom. Please marry her." Daniel froze. His heart seemed to stop beating for a moment. He turned his head slowly, staring at his daughter in disbelief. "What did you say?" he asked, his voice barely above a breath. Lily looked up at him with eyes that were wide, serious, and full of a child's unshakable certainty. "She's my mom," she repeated softly. "I know it. Please marry her." Daniel's throat tightened, and for a moment he didn't know how to respond. He glanced quickly at Emily, praying she hadn't heard. She was opening her car door, her attention fixed on gathering her things, unaware of the conversation happening only a few feet away. Relief washed over him, but only for a second, because the weight of Lily's words still pressed heavily against his heart. Kneeling down, Daniel placed his hands gently on Lily's shoulders. "Sweetheart," he said carefully, "Emily is very kind, but she isn't your mom." Lily shook her head firmly, her little face determined. "She feels like my mom. I can tell. When she talks to me, I feel safe. Just like when mommy used to hold me." Daniel felt his chest ache at her words. His daughter had only been a toddler when her mother passed away, too young to remember clearly. Yet somehow, she carried fragments of those memories, feelings more than details. And now she had attached those feelings to Emily. Lily, Daniel whispered, sometimes our hearts want things that aren't so simple. Emily is our friend, but we can't just ask her to be your mom. But why not? Lily asked, her voice trembling. She's nice. She likes you. She likes me. Isn't that enough? Daniel's eyes stung, and he pulled her into a hug. I know you want a mom again, he said softly, and I want you to be happy. But these things take time. We can't decide it in a day. Unbeknownst to them, Emily had paused by her car, glancing back. She hadn't heard every word, but she had caught enough to notice the seriousness in Daniel's face and the tender way he held his daughter. Something inside her stirred an ache mixed with compassion. She hesitated, then decided to walk back. Is everything okay? Emily asked gently. Daniel quickly composed himself, forcing a small smile. Yeah, everything's fine. Just a little heart to heart. Emily looked at Lily, who wiped her eyes and tried to smile back. Emily knelt down, brushing a stray curl from Lily's forehead. You're a very special girl, she said softly. I'm glad I get to know you. Lily leaned into her touch, and for a fleeting moment, Daniel saw something in Emily's eyes, something tender and almost motherly. It made his breath catch. Emily stood again, giving Daniel a quiet look he couldn't quite read. I'll see you both soon, she said, then slipped into her car and drove away. For a long while after she left, Daniel sat silently with Lily on the bench. The world seemed unusually quiet, the sounds of the town fading into the background. He thought about the way Emily had looked at his daughter, the way Lily had clung to her hand, and the way his daughter's whisper still echoed in his mind. She's my mom, Lily had said. And though Daniel knew the truth was more complicated, he couldn't deny that something about it felt strangely possible. That night, when he tucked Lily into bed, she looked up at him and whispered again, Daddy, don't forget what I said. Daniel kissed her forehead gently. I won't forget, he promised, though his voice trembled. After she fell asleep, he sat in the dimly lit kitchen, his head resting in his hands. The thought of opening his heart again scared him. He had built walls around it for so long, protecting himself from pain, protecting Lily from disappointment. But now those walls had cracks, and through them shone the innocent hope of his daughter's words. He closed his eyes and let out a long breath. He didn't know what the future held, but for the first time in years, he wondered if maybe, just maybe, life had more in store for them than he had allowed himself to believe. The next few days passed slowly, but something felt lighter in the air. Daniel tried to stay focused on work, but his thoughts kept drifting back to Emily. He remembered the softness in her voice, the way she listened, and especially the way she looked at Lily. There had been no judgment in her eyes, no hesitation, only kindness. Lily, on the other hand, seemed to carry her secret hope everywhere she went. Every time Daniel picked her up from school, she asked, Do you think Emily will come today, or maybe she'll bring soup again? Daniel never promised anything, but Lily's excitement made it clear her little heart was set on seeing Emily again. One bright Saturday morning, Daniel was tightening a bolt under a truck when he heard the familiar sound of a car pulling into the driveway. He slid out from under the vehicle, and there it was, the silver sedan. His chest tightened as he wiped his hands quickly. Emily stepped out, carrying a small basket this time. She looked relaxed, wearing a light sweater and jeans, as though she wasn't here for an errand but simply to visit. Good morning, she said cheerfully. I hope I'm not interrupting. You're not, Daniel replied, trying to sound casual. What brings you here today? Emily lifted the basket slightly. I thought you and Lily might like some cookies. I baked them last night. Before Daniel could respond, Lily came running out of the office area. Her face lit up instantly, and she threw her arms around Emily's waist without hesitation. Emily laughed, hugging her back with a natural ease that made Daniel's heart ache in the best way. "Cookies!" Lily exclaimed. "Can we try them now?" "Of course," Emily said warmly. "But only if your dad says it's okay." Daniel smiled despite himself. "I think we can make an exception." They all sat outside at a small wooden table near the garage, sharing cookies and milk. Lily talked endlessly about school projects, her favorite books, and how she wanted to learn how to bake too. Emily listened carefully, offering little tips about measuring flour or not forgetting to preheat the oven. Daniel sat quietly, watching the two of them interact. He couldn't deny the truth: Lily wasn't imagining the connection. Emily truly had a gentle way of fitting into their lives, as if she had always belonged. As the morning stretched on, Emily stayed. What was meant to be a short visit turned into hours of conversation. She helped Lily draw flowers on scrap paper, and when Daniel stepped inside to answer a phone call, he came back to find Emily and Lily laughing together, their heads bent over a silly doodle of a cat wearing sunglasses. Something inside him stirred at the sight. It was a mixture of longing, gratitude, and fear. He hadn't let himself dream about this kind of companionship in years. He didn't want to hope for something that might not last. But looking at his daughter's smile, brighter than it had been in a long time, he wondered if maybe hope wasn't such a dangerous thing after all. Later that afternoon, Emily offered to help with some chores around the garage. "I don't mind," she said when Daniel protested. "Besides, Lily looks like she wants to sweep." Sure enough, Lily was already holding a broom, grinning proudly as she pushed dust into a small pile. Emily joined in, organizing tools while humming softly. Daniel stood there for a moment, simply watching. His quiet garage, once filled only with the clatter of metal and the hum of engines, now felt alive with warmth and laughter. When the work was done, Emily suggested, "Why don't I take you both out for ice cream?" "My treat." Lily gasped, eyes wide with excitement. "Can we, Daddy? Please." Daniel hesitated only a moment before nodding. "All right. Ice cream sounds good." The three of them drove into town, Lily chattering nonstop in the back seat. At the small ice cream shop, they sat at a table by the window, each with a cone in hand. Lily's face was smeared with chocolate, and Emily leaned over with a napkin, gently wiping her cheek. The simple gesture made Daniel's heart skip. It was so natural, so tender, and Lily accepted it as though she had always expected it. For the first time in years, Daniel felt what it was like to be part of something bigger than just survival. He felt the warmth of being seen not only as a mechanic or a father, but as a man who could share laughter, share small joys, and maybe even share his life with someone again. As they walked back to the car, Lily slipped her small hand into Emily's without even asking. Emily squeezed it gently, smiling down at her. Daniel noticed and didn't stop them. He only walked beside them, his heart conflicted but undeniably touched. That evening, after Emily dropped them off at home, Lily climbed onto Daniel's lap. Her eyes were bright with determination. "Daddy," she whispered firmly, "did you see how she held my hand? She's supposed to be my mom. I feel it." Daniel closed his eyes, holding his daughter close. He wanted to tell her that life wasn't so simple, that grown-up hearts didn't always follow the same rules as a child's. But he couldn't bring himself to say it. Because deep down, he felt something too. Emily's presence was no longer just a passing kindness. It was becoming something more, something real. That night, Daniel lay awake long after Lily had fallen asleep. He thought about the years he had spent building walls, the years of loneliness he had accepted as his fate. And then he thought about Emily's smile, her laughter, the way she made Lily glow with joy. He didn't know where this road would lead, but he knew one thing for certain: Emily had already become a part of their lives in a way he hadn't expected. And maybe, just maybe, that wasn't something to fear. Weeks passed, and Emily's visits became a natural part of their lives. At first, she came with little things: soup, cookies, or just a smile. But soon, she didn't need an excuse. Sometimes she stopped by after work to say hello. Sometimes she sat with Lily while Daniel finished a job. And other times, she joined them for dinner, filling the small house with laughter and conversation that had been missing for too long. For Daniel, it was both comforting and frightening. Comforting because Emily's presence felt so right, like a missing piece had slipped quietly into place. Frightening because he had lived with loss before, and he knew how much it hurt when something precious was taken away. He wanted to protect himself, but more than that, he wanted to protect Lily. His daughter's little heart had already welcomed Emily with open arms. If this connection ever broke, he knew Lily would feel it deeply. One Friday evening, Emily arrived with takeout boxes from a local diner. "I thought I'd give you both a night off from cooking," she said with a grin. Lily clapped her hands in delight, rushing to set the table. Dinner that night was filled with chatter. Lily told Emily all about her school play, where she was going to be a flower, and Emily promised to come watch. Daniel listened, smiling quietly, his heart tugged in two directions, one part warning him not to let his guard down, the other part whispering that this was what family was supposed to feel like. After dinner, Lily curled up next to Emily on the couch with a picture book. Daniel sat in the armchair, watching as Emily read aloud in a soft, expressive voice. Lily giggled at the funny parts, leaning against Emily's shoulder as though it was the most natural thing in the world. And then it happened. When Emily closed the book and kissed Lily gently on the top of her head, Lily looked up at her with wide, innocent eyes. "You're my mom," she whispered, her voice clear and sure. Emily froze, her eyes widening in surprise. For a moment, silence filled the room. Daniel's breath caught. He had prayed that Lily wouldn't say those words out loud again, at least not in front of Emily. But now the truth of his daughter's heart was out in the open. "Sweetheart," Daniel began quickly, his voice gentle but firm, "Emily is our friend. You can't just..." But before he could finish, Emily placed a hand on his arm, stopping him. She looked at Lily, her own eyes soft and glistening. "Lily," she said quietly, "I'm not your mom. But I care about you very, very much. Do you understand?" Lily tilted her head, considering this. Then she leaned closer, whispering again, "But you could be." Daniel's chest tightened painfully. He wanted to protect Lily from disappointment, but Emily's expression stopped him. There was no awkwardness in her eyes, no discomfort, only tenderness. She pulled Lily into a hug, holding her close. For a long time, they sat like that, and Daniel felt something in him begin to unravel. Later, after Lily had gone to bed, the house was quiet. Daniel and Emily sat at the kitchen table, 2 cups of tea between them. The moment felt heavy, filled with unspoken words. "I'm sorry about what she said," Daniel began, his voice low. "She doesn't understand. She just misses her mom." Emily shook her head gently. "Don't apologize. She's a child. She speaks from her heart. And honestly, I'm honored she feels that way." Daniel looked at her, surprised. "You're not upset?" "Upset?" Emily gave a small smile. "No. Touched, yes. It's a big thing, for a little girl to feel safe enough with me to say that." Daniel's eyes softened, but there was still worry in his voice. "I just don't want her to get hurt. I don't want her to hope for something that can't happen." Emily reached across the table, resting her hand lightly over his. "And what if it could happen?" she asked softly. Daniel's heart skipped. He looked at her hand, then at her eyes. For a long moment, he couldn't speak. "Emily," he began, his voice rough, "It's been a long time since I even thought about letting someone in. I've been so focused on raising Lily, on keeping things steady for her. I didn't think there was room for anything else." Emily's expression was gentle. "And maybe that's why it feels like there is room now. Not to replace what was lost, but to build something new." The words sank deep into Daniel's heart. He wanted to resist, to hold on to the safety of his walls. But when he thought of Lily's laughter that evening, the way she had curled into Emily's side with trust and love, he knew his daughter had already leapt past those walls. And maybe it was time he did too. The weeks that followed brought them even closer. Emily came to Lily's school play, sitting in the front row, clapping the loudest when Lily waved from the stage in her flower costume. She joined them for Sunday picnics, teaching Lily how to braid daisy chains. She even learned how to hand Daniel the right tools when he worked on cars, teasing him that she was becoming his assistant. Bit by bit, the small garage that had once felt lonely began to feel like the center of something warm and alive. Customers noticed, too. They would smile at the sight of Emily and Lily sweeping the shop or sitting together at the workbench, and they would comment to Daniel, "Looks like you've got yourself a little family." Daniel never quite knew how to respond. But in his heart, he knew it was true. One evening, as the three of them sat together on the porch, watching the sky turn pink and gold, Lily leaned against Emily's arm and sighed happily. "This is perfect," she murmured. Daniel looked at Emily, their eyes meeting in the fading light. No words were needed because in that moment, everything was clear. It hadn't been planned. It hadn't been expected. But somehow, through a broken car and a whispered wish, their lives had found a new path. Emily wasn't just a visitor anymore. She had become a part of them. Daniel reached out, gently taking Emily's hand. She smiled, and Lily, half asleep, whispered once more, "Please marry her, Daddy." Daniel chuckled softly, kissing his daughter's forehead. Then he looked at Emily, his voice steady but full of feeling. "Maybe one day," he said quietly. Emily's eyes glistened as she squeezed his hand, and in that soft, simple moment, the promise of a new beginning was born. It wasn't just Lily's dream anymore. It was theirs.